Sean Combs wanted to then have a freak off in the Hamptons, so they got a hotel and an escort.
Dozens that they have shown already, and they're trying to put that together. What we're still waiting to hear more from, including through the cross-examination, which they will definitely try to undermine, is to what extent Cassie herself was forced, coerced, threatened into sex trafficking, which must include her non-consent. She said she got stomped in the face on the floor of Diddy's Escalade for the duration of a ride home. And she claimed throughout their time together that she felt, well, powerless to make the choice to escape.
Diddy's criminal trial got even messier. This time, it was Cassie's moment in court, and you could feel the tension in the room. She showed up in a long brown dress, visibly 8 months pregnant. No glance at Diddy, no smile, no acknowledgement. Just straight to the stand like she'd been waiting for this day forever. And maybe she had. Her voice was calm but firm. Not a single tear, not even a tremble. She laid it all out, raw and real, and it was beyond disturbing.
The jury had a whole night to process the disturbing details of these freak-offs that were laid out yesterday through the eyes of Cassie Ventura. The graphic details, the alleged abuse, the drug abuse. Today, they didn't have to use their imagination, though. It got real in that courtroom today when the jurors, not the public, not the press, when the jurors saw still screenshots from these freak-offs. There was something so uncomfortable about the moment. Watching the jurors see something so raw and so personal in a courtroom full of eyes and full of opinions.
Cassie testified that Diddy didn't just hurt her. She claimed he beat her, drugged her, cut her off from everyone, and even trafficked her. On top of that, she said he filmed her while she was having sex with male workers. The courtroom was dead silent. Jaws dropped. It didn't just happen once or twice. Cassie said it was nonstop, over and over again in hotel rooms and inside Diddy's homes. She told the court she eventually gave up fighting back, said she stopped feeling like a person and started feeling like she was just property.
Testified about having to hide under a toilet to get away from Diddy. She revealed getting a gash by her eyebrow after he threw it into a bed frame in front of her friends. She said she got stomped in the face on the floor of Diddy's Escalade for the duration of a ride home. And she claimed throughout their time together that she felt, well, powerless to make the choice to escape. Now, to make her point, Cassie talked about going to a hotel when Diddy beat her after a party in Los Angeles.
No real friends, no support, and no way out that felt safe. It was like she was trapped. She claimed Diddy recorded these encounters and sometimes even made her watch the footage just to break her down and keep control. And other times,
she said she didn't want to stay, but felt she couldn't leave. She testified, quote, "It was not safe. I didn't have the resources I needed to get out and move, to get out and not have anybody stop me." You know, Cassie went on to say, I understood Sean's capabilities, his access to guns, and the threats that he made prior to that.
He used those videos as blackmail. According to her, he warned her that if she ever tried to walk away, those tapes would destroy her life.
Cassie clarified her testimony from yesterday as well, saying that there were times that she did try to fight back or even initiated violence. She testified she did so earlier on in their relationship, but she quickly found out it could backfire, telling the prosecutors, quote, that it could escalate the fight more and make it worse for myself. When the prosecutor asked what she meant by that, Cassie said, quote, just make them more violent, make them stronger. Want to push me harder in that situation.
Earlier that same day, a man named Daniel Phillip, one of the male escorts Diddy allegedly hired, also took the stand. He said Diddy paid him thousands to sleep with Cassie, while Diddy sat and watched from the corner.
She said that the escort was named Dave. She took the drug GHB and she went into a G-hole, which sounds like some type of blackout. She woke up and she was naked in the shower, and Dave and Sean were freaking out. I bugged out. It wasn't pretty, is what she said in the testimony. She said, then what? Ventura responded, I spoke to a friend of Sean's and then we had a freak off. And then they showed another photograph, and it shows her eyebrow that had healed up a little bit a week later, and she has a permanent scar on her eyebrow.
Daniel said Cassie looked frozen, scared, like she was just going through the motions. When he left, he said he felt sick, like whatever just happened wasn't right, even if it technically counted as consensual. Daniel said there was another moment he couldn't forget. He heard banging and screaming coming from behind a closed door. It was loud and scary. Then, just minutes later, Cassie walked out, trembling. Her face was bruised, and she didn't say a single word, just kept her head down and walked right past him like she was invisible.
Cassie also described the leverage, that's the word she used, leverage Diddy had over her. She said that leverage came in the form of blackmail, those videos specifically of the freak-offs. She testified that Diddy threatened to release them when he got angry. Cassie said, quote, one time I dated someone else, and that is what it was all about. I'm going to put out 2 embarrassing videos of you. He just wanted to hurt me.
The defense tried to flip the script. They claimed Cassie stayed because of the money, saying she was grown and could have left anytime she wanted. But the prosecution wasn't having it. They fired back hard, saying trauma doesn't play by simple rules. Control doesn't always come with chains or locked doors. Sometimes it shows up wrapped in luxury. Sometimes it pretends to be love, but it's the kind that eats you alive from the inside.
She said Sean accused her of taking drugs from his boat and threw her off of the boat, but her passport was still on the boat. She was on the red carpet for some type of event that night, and she said she attended the movie. They then went to New York. There was a commercial flight that they took. She traded her seat to get away, but he traded to get next to her. What did he show you? Freak-off videos. So we've heard about this, him showing videos and then using that as kind of blackmail material, if you will. She said that he played the freak-off videos for me on one of his laptops. He said he would release them. So that's some pretty compelling evidence.
Diddy didn't move much while Cassie spoke. Arms crossed tight, eyes locked on her, barely blinking. Every now and then, he scribbled something in a notebook, but he never looked away. Not once. And when she finally stepped down from the stand, the room was completely still. No clapping, no whispers, just the sharp echo of her heels and the quiet click of the door behind her. Cassie was just 22 when Diddy first introduced her to what he called freak-offs. At first, it sounded like some wild, twisted fantasy. But that illusion didn't last long. It quickly turned into something regular, something dark. Cassie said it became a part of her routine, one that left her feeling used, degraded, and completely worthless.
Cassie can talk about and identify the sex workers that may have been involved, identify the locations, because again, in order for this to be a federal case, you've got to cross state lines. So if you have to establish that these activities happened in New York, happened in Miami, happened in California, that you were forcibly transferred or had to travel to each of these different locations. So the videos are going to be important from that perspective. But again, I don't think everybody's going to sit there and, watch, sex tape after sex tape after sex tape and watch Cassie be, basically and brutalized 10 different ways from sunrise. I don't see that happening.
Way before all this went public, Diddy had rules, like an actual checklist for Cassie to follow. Her nails had to be done just right, only white or French tips. Her body, tanned, waxed, and toned to perfection. He'd throw shady comments about her getting implants, nitpick her curves, even criticize how she walked and talked. It wasn't just about showing up. Cassie said it felt like she was prepping for a full-blown performance.
But I do see some snippets coming in. But I do got to say one more thing, because my inner prosecutor wants to go after what Brad said.
Yeah, I had a feeling Melba was going to have something to say about what Bradford was saying. So go on, Melba.
Yeah. But most importantly,
I think that Melba's bringing the velvet hammer to you,
Oh,
Bradford. Not a velvet
great.
glove, a velvet hammer.
Melba's fantastic.
So go on,
She's
Melba.
always been fantastic. I welcome it.
Well, one thing I will say, first of all, is that sadly, I think all of us know people who have stayed in abusive relationships for a lifetime. And we know people that have died as a result of domestic violence relationships.
The first time one of those so-called freak-offs happened was in Diddy's bedroom at his LA spot. Cassie didn't even know who the other guy was, only that he got paid to be there. She had taken something and was drinking before it all started, just trying to numb the anxiety. Diddy allegedly ran the whole thing, picking the lighting, the outfits, even using baby oil. He made her wear masks and wigs, turning the whole thing into some creepy, secret fantasy. And now, legal experts say Cassie's testimony could seriously impact how this case plays out.
That she and her girlfriends, they went to Prince's party. Yes, the musician Prince. Diddy was there. He didn't know she was going to be there. He got angry and she said, quote, "He beat me up." She said that after they broke up in 2018, that he raped her in her living room at her home. She also said that it wasn't just her, that one time he held one of her friends over the balcony on the 17th floor of her apartment in Los Angeles and hit another one of her friends with a wooden hanger.
And she lost that friendship. That was a best friend of, 17 years she described, and then they don't communicate any longer. I'm curious to see how the prosecution might develop those connections a little bit more fulsomely.
Cassie said these freak-offs weren't just one-time things. Sometimes they went down in 3 or 4 separate rounds and could stretch all night long. Diddy called the shots, when it started, when it ended. And over time, it became a regular thing, happening almost every week. To make it through, she admitted to using drugs like cocaine. Not to party, but just to cope. She didn't say no, not because she wanted any of it, but because she was scared to set him off. She said when Diddy got mad, his eyes would turn cold and black, and that terrified her. Cassie said the only part of those freak-offs she sort of liked was the rare one-on-one time with Diddy. But even then, she felt like a ghost. Just playing a part, not really seen. She once tried to open up and tell him how all of it made her feel. His response? Cold. He brushed her off and called her predictable, like her feelings were just noise.
Of people, dozens that they have shown already, and they're trying to put that together. What we're still waiting to hear more from, including through the cross-examination, which they will definitely try to undermine, is to what extent Cassie herself was forced, coerced, threatened into sex trafficking, which must include her non-consent.
Combs' team will begin their cross-examination of Cassie Ventura tomorrow, which I'm sure she is dreading.
In one email, Diddy even asked, "Who you gonna want to call? Someone?" Thinking she wanted to invite more people, but Cassie said all she really wanted was him. They went all out with disguises, masks, wigs, even sky-high stripper heels, all because they were scared of being recognized. These setups didn't just happen once or twice. It went down in hotel rooms all over. New York, Miami, Vegas, even Turks and Caicos. Staff would bring in baby oil and candles, sometimes 10 bottles in one night. That's how wild and frequent it all was. When Cassie opened up in court about how it all made her feel, she couldn't hold it in. She broke down. Through tears, she said she felt like nothing more than an object. And the worst part, she actually started to believe that's all she was ever good for.
Take us inside the courtroom, Laura. What was Diddy Combs' demeanor while Cassie was testifying? Because I'm sure his attorneys told him to behave a certain way. Don't scowl at her, don't be angry. What did he do?
Oh, every defense counsel knows that every eye in that courtroom is on the defendant, trying to read every emotion, interpret every single look and glance. He kept his eyes trained on her throughout the testimony, often writing notes, however, to his counsel, leaning over, shifting in his seat, crossing and then recrossing his legs, and finally landing on a position where he held his hands, fingers intertwined on his lap before adjusting again.
She described the freak-off rooms in detail. They weren't just dark and hidden. They were set up with red, blue, and purple studio lights, like something out of a flashy music video. But this wasn't showbiz. It was real people, real pain. Cassie said those rooms weren't just flashy. They were hot, almost unbearably warm. And what's worse, she claimed they used stacks of extra linens to keep from staining the hotel sheets. Because sometimes there was blood, sometimes even urine. She said she was expected to participate even during her period. No breaks, no care, just keep going. We already knew things got disturbingly wild from what Gene Deal shared about Diddy's habits.
This is the first time I was ever in an exotic bookstore with Puff. So, I'm giving him his space. He's taking things off the shelves and stuff like that, because they gave him a brown paper bag. When they gave him a brown paper bag, he was just putting stuff in there. So I said, damn, he got to go put it on the counter and, show everybody what he's getting. So as he's going, I'm just looking at the places where he's picking stuff from. So there's one part he picked up some things from up here on my left side. And then he picked quite a few of them down. I was like, okay. He put them in the bag. So when I went by there and I looked up there and it said butt plugs. And I was like, hey, yo.
But it doesn't stop there. One jaw-dropping allegation? Some people are even claiming Diddy's own mother had involvement in these freak-offs.
I think she just was enjoying the fruits of the labor.
But why you believe she knew about the freak-offs?
Because one of the witnesses said she was there. People had to take IVs. Remember the time that him and his mama kissed each other on the lips?
Yeah, I remember that video.
Do you remember that both of them was getting an IV at the same time?
Yeah, I did notice that, yep.
That's from the Diddy freak-off party. And I'm gonna say allegedly.
Cassie dropped one of the most disturbing bombshells yet. She said Diddy and another woman urinated on her. She never asked for it. She didn't want it. But she was high, overwhelmed, and couldn't even bring herself to say no. At one point, she said she started choking on it. She felt disgusted, humiliated. But Diddy, he was into it.
So let me ask you this. You knowing her at one point, you knowing her personally, is she the kind of person that, will be a part of a freak-off or no?
I think that she liked to party, and she partied with young people. She's always been like that. She always copied or emulated Little Kim and Mary J. Blige. Or they emulated her.
It didn't happen every time, but it happened enough that it scarred her. She didn't scream or fight because, in her words, it should have been obvious she didn't want it. Afterward, staff would come in to clean up the mess. And sometimes the damage cost thousands.
He tried to bum rush me. I grabbed him and threw him against the piano. When I threw him into the piano, Puff and Ja Rule runs out the room. Puff got his towel, Ja grabbing his towel, but they butt the naked. And so then Ja was like, yo, what's going on? Yo, Gene, that's my cousin. He know me well, and Puff was like, yo, Gene, what happened? I said, he tried to get in the room. I told him he couldn't get in the room. And he was like, Puff looked at Ja. He said, yo, Ja said, you ain't want to go in that room because there's a lot of freaking going on. So I was like, oh, he said it was a lot of freaking going on.
Cassie is expected to keep testifying for another day or two, but this was the first time she told her full story, right in front of Diddy and a packed courtroom. It wasn't just tough to hear, it was heavy. And we're only halfway through. So what do you think? How's this trial gonna end? Make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next one.